Okay, so now that you've got your design all traced out, we're gonna start to paint it. I've already started painting this one, so I'm gonna show you what you're gonna be doing for the second bird, since I've already started over here. Because we're using the watercolors and they do bleed into each other fairly easily, we're gonna help ourselves out by using some of the crayons, kind of like we did with the color wheel and the black crayon, to give ourselves some barriers. However, we're not gonna use black because that'll make it a little bit less realistic. So we're gonna actually use colors that we are using that match the paint colors. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna think about what colors you want your bird to be. I've got my bird here. I've lightly erased it, so you might not be able to see it very well. I can see the little bit of tracing of where it is so that I know where to keep my guidelines and where to do my crayon, but you don't want that pencil line to show through, so you really do want to kind of lightly erase that crayon. I'm gonna make my toucan bird over here be like a blue violet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go right along my outline. And I'm gonna come here. This is part of the leg. And then this is part of the wing and the branch. And then here's partly down by the tail. I'm also gonna do this part right here. So now I have this area that I want to paint in with my blue violet color. So now I've got it all sectioned out. Oops, I've got to do this one too. Got this all sectioned out. I'm gonna outline the whole bird before I start doing the color because I don't wanna start to smear the color around with my hand. So the next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the wing with kind of a red orange or a yellow, just kind of all the different oranges that we've got. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with my red orange up at the top. I'm gonna come here, and then I might switch to a lighter orangish color for these longer feathers down here. And then I think I'm gonna use, let's see, maybe I'll do some reds down here below for my tail feathers. And you get to pick the colors that you want to use. It doesn't have to be necessarily exactly what the toucan colors are. If you want to change it up, totally up to you. You get to be creative on this part. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to paint in the body of my bird. So I'm going to use a blue violet. So I'm going to take a little bit of my water. I'm going to get my blue on my brush. And I want to get quite a bit up here in my palette. Nice clean palette. You might want to wash your water out every once in a while as well, just so that it stays fresh and doesn't start to dilute your paints. And now I'm going to take a little bit of the purple, mix the purple into my blue. Maybe got a little too much blue or purple, so I'm going to just come back and I'm going to grab some more blue and add that to it. All right, so now I'm happy with my blue violet color, and I'm going to go ahead and start to just paint in right along the edge. I do want to try and stay in my lines the best that I can, even though the crayon's going to help keep your colors a little bit protected. You still want to make sure that you're controlling your paintbrush so that they are not going over the crayon line. All right, so now I've got a lot of my blue violet put in, and I want to kind of start to blend it into a red violet. So I'm going to now stop here. I'm going to get some red on my brush, and I'm going to put a little bit of the violet in there, and I'm going to let these kind of start to blend together just a little bit here, and then I'm going to start to mix them together, and I want them to blend together pretty evenly. I'm kind of going backwards, aren't I? But I'm going to take a little more red. Watercolors, you have a little bit more blending capability. Normally I would start with the lighter color and then blend the darker color into it. But I wanted to add in a little bit. I was gonna do the whole thing with the blue violet, and then I wanted to add in a little bit of the red, so I kind of went backwards. So now I'm just gonna come back to make sure that everything blends nicely. You don't want it to look like a stripe. You want it to nice and evenly blend in to that red violet. So now right down in here, I'm gonna use the red violet color. And I'm gonna go even a little more red into this for this bottom part here. And now I feel like I've got the body of my bird done to my liking. So now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start to work on the wings. And I'm gonna start with a red orange. So I'm gonna take some orange. You know what, I'm gonna put this actually over here because it's kind of seeping through and I don't want it to contaminate with the purple, otherwise it's gonna turn that brownish color. Now I'm gonna get a little red. Mix my red over here. So now I've got my red orange and I'm gonna start up here at the top, making a little red orange. I like to let the colors kind of show between. So once I get my red orange in here, I'm gonna dab my brush, kind of almost that tint of it, a little bit transparent. And then I'm gonna come back with a little bit of red and I'm just gonna kind of let it bleed a little bit into the paint. If you get too much water, just dab your brush and then you can kind of come back and dab at it a little bit. And then I want it to be a little bit more orangey down here, so I'm actually gonna grab some yellow to lighten it up. I need a clean brush. Just to lighten it a little bit through here. Okay, that makes me happy. So now I'm gonna go into more of my oranges. So I'm gonna take a little bit of orange, a little bit of yellow. Can't really see the yellow, so I'm gonna clean my brush off. And I'm gonna then do quite a bit of yellow down here at the bottom. So my first thing is I'm gonna get all of the yellow in and then I can come back and add in little highlights if I want to. All right, so now I'm gonna take just little touches of pretty dry brush with the paint on it, and I'm just gonna kind of highlight in, or darken in, I guess, some of these areas here so that it gives me a little bit of depth. And now it kind of looks stripy, so then I'm gonna clean my brush off, dry it a little bit, and then I'm just gonna kind of lightly sweep over those, and it'll help kind of blend them a little bit more evenly so that they don't look so stripy and like they're bleeding too much. I'm gonna do the same thing up here, so I'm gonna come back with a little teeny bit of red. I'm gonna just bring a little red right along this edge. I'm gonna clean my brush off, dry it on my paper towel, and then I'm just gonna sweep across to kind of clean up those edges and stop the bleeding. So now I feel like I've got my body and I've got my wing done. So now what I wanna do is I wanna do the bottom of the tail. So that's gonna be with the reds, and I'll probably do a little bit of the red violets. So I'm gonna start with just getting my color in, using the lighter color first. Like so, and now I'm gonna take a little bit of this blue violet that I had already made, and I'm just gonna kind of dab this along. And then wash my brush, dry it out, and then just kind of soften all of that up by pulling it across. So now I've got all of that finished. The next thing I'd want to do is I want to do something with the eye. I don't want it to just be the white paper. You want to make sure you're filling in all of the colors. Otherwise it's going to look like it's incomplete. So I want to use like a tint of maybe a blue. So I'm going to do a really, really light blue. A little bit of that transparency is coming in there. Okay, so let's see, I'm gonna dab that. So I'm gonna paint in this section with just a little bit of that color. It's getting a little pooly, so I'm gonna dip my dry my brush a little bit and then come back and that'll soak it up. Now I'm gonna wait for this to dry completely before I put in the eye, and the eye is just gonna be solid black. So then what I would be doing next is I would finish the branch that I have coming here. So I'm going to use a brown crayon, outline here. I've got this guy sitting on this branch here. And then this branch is coming down here. See part of it there, coming in here. So then I could paint in my branches. For the feet, I'm probably gonna use, you don't wanna use black or brown. I would use like a blue violet-y kind of a color for the feet, maybe a shade of the blue violet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just outline the whole foot with the blue violet, and I'm gonna now just take a little teeny bit of the black, mix it in to my blue violet here, and I might let it be a little bit more transparent because I don't want it to be what's the standout. And I'm gonna paint in the feet. And then this guy's, he's got kind of a big claw coming over. So now I've got my feet drawn in. I would finish up doing the branches here, and then for the background, you get to kind of choose how you want to do your background. It could be sunset time, it could be sky time, just like middle of the day, it could be twilight time. You get to choose what you want it to be. I think I'm going to make it a light blue because I really want to keep the birds kind of standing out. So I'm going to use kind of a tint of my blue. And I'll just do a little section and then I'll put my example so that it's not taking up a ton of time. But like if oops, that's way too dark. So if you get it too dark, just rinse your brush or dry it off a little bit, and then come back to other areas, and you can always come back and kind of pull that color, move it around the best that you can. But try and keep it all going the same direction. If you have to go different directions while you're painting it in, that's okay, but then kind of come back and pull it so that it all goes the same direction, and so that it's all about the same thickness. That's kind of important, otherwise it looks splotchy and weird when you finish. You can blend colors if you want to try something a little more advanced, that's fine too. I might end up blending this more into a blue-violet maybe, like a twilighty type time, but I'm just gonna kind of go with the blues for now so that I can see if blending it would be what I want to do, because I do, again, really want the birds to be the focal point and the standout. So just notice how I'm kind of coming back around and I'm just kind of flowing everything the same direction. Little bit of splotchiness is okay because there's always going to be some differences in the sky. So anyways, I would keep going with this until I was completely finished with the entire background. I would put the eye in, finish off the branch, and then my final project would be complete. Always good idea to sign your work when you're all finished.